in a world full of negative people. Hey man, I'm just trying to be a positive guy, a positive farmer, a positive outfitter. This is a Shark Farmer podcast with your host, Rob Sharkey. Whatever.
And welcome again to the Shark Farmer podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Rob Sharkey, and today we're going to talk to an OG of agriculture, of agricultural social media anyway. We're going to talk to Brandi Buzzard. How you doing, Brandi?
I'm good. I've never been called an OG before.
Well, you've been around forever. I mean, I remember following you a long, long time ago.
Well, I appreciate that. I do, but I guess thank you for calling me an OG. That makes me feel good. Thank you.
I wasn't calling you old, if that's what you're worried about.
No, I didn't mean it that way. I thought it was cool. I appreciated it. Thank you.
You're out there in Kansas, right?
Yes, I live in southeast Kansas.
What's the hometown?
My hometown is Colony, Kansas, which is a town of about 300, but I now live near a different town of 300 called Greeley, Kansas, which is not the same as Greeley County, Kansas. That's western Kansas. The actual town is Greeley. And no one has generally really ever heard of either of those, so it probably didn't matter that much.
Well, now, I know we're recording this from our bunker. Are you safe from the corona scare of 2020?
I would like to think so. I already work from home to begin with, so this past week hasn't really been that different. I think we're safe. We're practicing washing our hands a lot. We're doing a decent job at social distancing. I don't have any other office mates, so I think we're good out here in the sticks of Kansas.
Yeah, I was surprised Trump's press release there that people can actually catch us over the phone.
Well, too late now. I guess I've got it.
All right, Brandi, I got to roll into my ad. Is that okay?
Oh, I guess so.
Okay. Today is, I don't know what day this is coming out. It's generally on a Tuesday, like every Tuesday. So today would be the 24th of March. They say in less than 2 weeks, the Shark Farmer television show will be coming out on RFD. Do you want to know why they said 2 weeks, Brandi? I'll tell you their exact words if you're interested.
I mean, I am. I didn't know you were going to have a television show. That's exciting.
I wouldn't get your hopes up. It's not that great. All right. So they said, this is the people at RFD. They said they described my show as it would be good quarantine viewing. Now, I'm not sure how to take that.
I think that's a compliment. Think about all of the millions of shows there are on like Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, and there's that Peyton's Places thing on ESPN Plus. If they're saying that your show is going to rise to the top over all that effort programming, I think that's a win for you.
No, they did not say that. The way I took it was that it would be better to watch my show than to die, basically.
Oh, I wouldn't look at it that way. I'd look at it as the fact that you should watch your show rather than watching all the other stuff while you're at home.
You know, it's interesting. The RFD, they were talking about how more people are watching them. Number one, because there's no sports, so people aren't watching sports. And then the people are confined and they've got to watch something on TV. Because you got to keep the brain active. You know what I'm saying? You can't just sit and think about what's going to happen.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
What are you doing to keep yourself calm in this troubled times?
Well, I don't have a lot of downtime after I get off work because I have cows to feed and a toddler to take care of. And I'm sure as a parent, you understand that taking care of the kids is a big job. But I've actually been catching up on a lot of blogging and also our cow records. We're getting ready to bring cows home from corn stock. So we need to like name the bulls and get all the registration stuff done online. So that's been keeping me occupied for the past week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about your blog too. That is an OG blog. You would agree with that, right?
I will say that it was an OG blog. I will give you that one. It's been like going on 11 years, I guess. So, or maybe 12, 11, something like that. But yes, I would say that the blog has been around a while.
All right, that's impressive. But oh yeah, the ad. Yeah, they've got to do this. I'm contractually obligated. You ever sign something and not really read it? This is where we're at, Brandi.
Well, good luck.
This and my landlord's getting letters, but that was a different podcast. Okay, so it is hopefully in 2 weeks from today somewhere. I don't even have a time slot yet, but they want to force it in there because people have to watch TV because they can't do anything else. Shark Farmer, the television show, it's highlighting people in agriculture, People like you, Brandi, really cool people that are doing a great job out there that need to get out to a different audience. So you should come on sometime.
I would love that.
Okay. Shark Farmer TV coming soon. RFD TV. Brandi Buzzard out there in Southeast Kansas. Okay. For the people that don't know you, so because there's new people getting on social media all the time, right? So there's got to be some people out there that don't know you. Go ahead and kind of introduce yourself. Give some background.
Okay, well, I'm Brandi Buzzard. I live in, like we've established, I live in Southeast Kansas. I'm just your regular rancher, mom, blogger, I guess, just doing my best to get as much done between the sunrises as I can. My husband and I have got a herd of purebred balancer and Gelby seed stock, and we have full-time jobs, and we have a little kid, and then somewhere in there we try to have hobbies. So I'm pretty straightforward. So just living the dream out here in rural Kansas.
All right, let's establish something right off the bat, because there's people out there that blog about stuff that they really don't live, and it does happen in agriculture. You want to blog about ranching or farming, and, I don't know, maybe if you go watch it happening on your farm or you go watch it happening on your ranch. But no, this is not you. You're actively involved. You can definitely ride a horse. What you're blogging about is what you're living, correct?
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, there was a time, 5, 6 years ago when we didn't have any cows, and I was blogging about what other farmers and ranchers did and like kind of trying to speak for the majority of them about what people did on their farms and ranches. But I mean, now for the past 4 years, we are living the cow dream. So pictures that are on our blog or stories of what we do, I mean, that's all my life and what we're experiencing here on the ranch and how we are raising a kid during all that and our trials and tribulations and all that. Yeah, it's 100% authentic me.
But you weren't necessarily a farm girl, were you?
No. So my family grew up on, I'm going to call it a hobby ranch because like we had 4-H animals, but we've always had horses and cattle that we roped and rodeoed. So I call it a hobby ranch, but we never, my dad and mom, they never farmed or anything like that. My grandparents don't farm. So I just call it a hobby ranch. But now on my husband and I's operation, we still don't farm. We just have cows and horses, and then we have someone put up our hay for us. So we don't actually farm any. It's all cows.
I tell you what, sometimes you get caught up on that definition, farmers and ranchers. I would say a lot of the times the farmers don't get upset, but if you call a rancher a farmer, sometimes you guys get touchy.
I would say that's fair. I don't really know why that is, but I think some people can get pretty offended about it. And like I said, I can't speak for other people or why they might get offended by it. I don't get offended, but I'll point it out because it's an inaccuracy. Like I don't farm anything. But yeah, you're right. Some people can get pretty personal about it. So I try not to do that.
When you were growing up, though, did you live in a city?
No, we lived out in the country. We lived like 25, 30 minutes from the nearest grocery store. But we just had a small acreage, like 25 acres there that we had our pastures for the horses and some for our rope and cattle and an arena and stuff like that. But we didn't have, like a big sprawling farm or ranch or anything like that.
Have you ever lived in a city?
I have. I mean, I lived in a city when I was going to college and at K-State. Obviously, I lived in town then, but my husband and I, when we were in grad school, he was a Fulbright scholar, and that pays for a year of graduate study in another country, and you have to go where you can speak the language, and he only speaks English. So that basically narrowed it down to
Canada,
England, and Australia. And he did work on pigs. So we went to Australia for a year, and we lived in the middle of Melbourne, Australia for about 10 or 11 months. So we did that city living for just a little bit.
Yeah, but that would be fine with that, because if you lived out there in the bush, you'd get eaten by an alligator or a cobra or something.
Yeah, or attacked by a giant spider. I enjoyed that part, like city life there for that little bit, because it is kind of nice that everything is right there within a real quick walking distance, but you don't have any privacy. And the roads kind of fire up around 5:30 in the morning with people going to work. And so it's a lot of road noise. It was nice to get that experience. And we did visit the outback quite a bit. And I wouldn't have wanted to live that far in the outback. But I think I've probably done with my city living for the time being, just because I like to be able to look up and see the sky and not see buildings and stuff like that. So I'll stick to the countryside.
I lived in Peoria. I've lived in Carbondale when I went to college. And, they're not huge cities. They've got a few Walmarts, I guess that's how you gauge things.
Yeah.
And it's different. It's so different from the country, and it's hard to explain necessarily because, I had a front porch out in Peoria. It was actually a lot of fun. I was living in a house with, 3-4 other guys. We'd sit out on the front porch, we'd drink and, just whatever. It was fine. But it was different. All of us were farm kids, and we couldn't wait to get back to the country because I think there's more freedom. Just the idea that you could go out of your house whenever you want. You don't have to worry safety-wise. You don't have to worry about people seeing you or watching you or anything like that. It is hard to explain to city people, don't you feel, like what it is living in the country?
I know why I love living in the country, but I feel like it's hard to explain to people when I'm saying, well, there's wide open spaces and I get to go outside and do what I want. And I feel like some city people might be like, well, what do you want to do? And I don't really know. I just don't want to be stuck in my house. So, the past few days when the sun has actually been shining, like we'll go outside and my dog, I'll just be like, go play, go find something. And so we've ended up looking for worms. We've gone down to the creek. It's not like you have something planned that you're going to do outside. It's that the opportunity is there to not be in your house.
Yeah.
Doing anything that's not being stuck in your house. And it's kind of hard to quantify that because I tend to think that as humans, we have to have plans. Well, I'm going to be here at 7:30 and here at 10 and here at, such and such time. Whereas a lot of it is just, I'm going to go outside and see what I can find to do. So I guess if you've never lived that lifestyle, that would be kind of hard to grasp. Yeah.
How is the worm hunting in Kansas?
It was good a couple days ago. They kind of dried up a little bit the past day, but my daughter found like 3 or 4 the other night, and it's been pretty good. It's been raining a lot of mud, a lot of rain, so it's prime worm hunting conditions.
Yeah, you got to catch them in the rut. It's all about timing with hunting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I guess. Although we did find a lot of them in the tractor rut, to be honest. So I guess that has double meaning.
All right, how long have you been married?
9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
How'd you guys meet?
Years. We met in college, and so we met how most people in college meet in a bar. So
every time we interview someone,
like
90% of the people, it's either the bar or like a dating site.
Yeah. So we met before like Tinder was a thing. I don't know when that was a thing, but we met before smartphones were a thing. So it was definitely before Tinder. But yeah, we have how there's those cute signs that'll say like in people's houses say like all because 2 people fell in love, and that you've got all these family pictures. In our house, we have one of those lovey-dovey signs that I made that says we met in a bar, and then our family pictures underneath it.
It's all because 2 people ordered vodka.
That's right. We're just going to be, I'm pretty authentic. That's what happened. So we own it. We embrace it. A lot of people who get married shortly after college are probably in the same situation. So.
Yes. Yeah. Now, did he have an ag background?
He does. My husband actually grew up in Northwest Ohio, and he comes from a farming background. And so his family had a cow-calf, or does have a cow-calf herd, and then they crop farm corn and soybeans in Northwest Ohio. And then he came out to Kansas to go to school. First, he went to community college at Butler Community College and livestock judge. And then we met at K-State when he was on the livestock judging team there. So we are both rooted in agriculture, just kind of different segments of it.
Yeah, K-State, they're nutty about their livestock judging, aren't they?
They're pretty good. I'll have to brag on them a little bit. They're pretty good. My husband was on their team, and then he was the assistant coach for maybe 3 years or something like that. And then one of my sisters-in-law was on the team later as well. So the purple runs pretty strong in our family.
I would love to be a livestock coach because I would love after each practice to say, go hit the showers.
Well, okay. I haven't heard that perspective on it before, but
see,
I guess
you got to keep them on their toes.
Your fiddle. Yeah, you do. Yeah. It was, it's pretty time consuming though. I didn't see a lot of him when he was doing that because he was in grad school and coaching. And generally this time of year, the livestock team is busy all the time. And then on the weekends they're gone. But this year, all those contests have been canceled for obvious reasons. So it's not happening right now.
And you have a daughter?
We have a 3-year-old daughter. Her name is Oakley Ann. She is not named after Annie Oakley. But people
okay.
People make that assumption a lot.
Well,
so.
yeah, I couldn't imagine why.
Yeah, I don't know. Ann was my grandmother's middle name, so I wanted to have that tie there. But the Oakley part came from when we were trying to pick a name. We didn't find out the gender of our baby before she was born. So I did not want, if we had a daughter, for her to have a disadvantage on resumes and things like that, strictly because she was a girl going into it. So I wanted a name that you wouldn't know for sure if it was a girl or a boy. So like Oakley or, Alex is another name like that kind of thing. So that's where Oakley came from. Really like the name anyway. So.
Well, and they're never going to know. Maybe she is the sunglass heir.
Maybe. I mean, I guess unlucky for her, she's not. But
all right, you're a chick. I don't know if you knew this or not, but you're a female in agriculture. It's funny to me that that you went ahead and had that in the back of your mind when you're naming your kid. Have you experienced times where being a female wasn't the best thing?
Well, I don't know that I would phrase it that way.
That's what I asked that. I'm like, yeah, that's probably not the best way. You know what I'm saying?
I think that happens. I'm not going to say that it happens all the time, but I think that there is potential there for women to be maybe held to a different set of standards, and just part of it. We put our head down, we work hard, we get the job done. And personally, I was raised, my dad didn't treat me like a little, fragile flower or anything like that. So, I grew up working alongside my dad and my grandpa and helping them and on the ranch or doing whatever. But that's not the case for everybody. So I think that we need to be cognizant of that, but it's not necessarily going to be the case for everyone. I just didn't want her to potentially not be considered for something because they knew that she was a girl.
Yeah, and Oakley's not a name you're going to forget. I mean, that's probably something that you know a little bit about too. Brandi Buzzard is not a name that you're going to forget.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to think so. I've said before that I'm relatively outgoing when I'm face-to-face with people, and I have reddish hair, and my last name is Buzzard. So I feel like it's pretty hard to forget that, for better or worse. So Oakley, that was not the goal of her name, but it's probably easier to remember, I guess, than maybe some other names. That, and when she introduces herself, she gives you all 4 names. She says, "I'm Oakley Ann Buzzard Frobos." So that also makes it memorable. Buzzard is also another middle name of hers, so she got the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, she's loaded up. All right, you describe yourself as outgoing. What does that mean?
So I'm an introvert by nature, but when I'm like out in public, most introverts will tell you that we have like a switch, and we can turn the switch on and be outgoing and extroverted around a crowd for like a certain amount of time. And I do that, and then I go back to my house and turn the switch off, and I immerse myself in Mad Men or whatever else is on Netflix, or Shark Farmer TV coming soon. And I got a ding. Is there a reward if I get enough dings in a podcast? Is there like a prize for the most number?
No.
I'm also very competitive.
Yeah. Well,
so anyway,
keep trying on that ding.
Yeah, I don't know. When I go out in public, I try to talk to people, and then I come back to my house and recharge. So
you've touched on something that I'm very familiar with too, because a lot of people think if you're an introvert that you're going to just hide in a corner when you're at a public event or farm shows or whatever. It's not the case. And there's a term for it. I don't know what it is, that you can actually be both. You can be an introvert and an extrovert. And I find there's actually a lot of people that are that kind of had done things with their social media, have done things with, kind of getting out there in the public eye. I think that's more normal than people actually realize. I know, if I go to a farm show or something, then you have the meet and greets at night. I've got to have a break, or else it's too much. It's too much people. It's not that you don't like being around the people or that. You just need a break.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Kudos to you, because I'm not going to a farm show or a meeting or anything like that if I don't know I'm going to have someone to kind of be my wing person when I'm there. So I'm not going to meet and greet unless I know there's going to be somebody that I already know there. It's just exhausting for me personally to kind of be on and be in a space where I'm going to talk to everybody and be excited and just do that for days and days on end. So like after I go to the NCBA trade show and convention, and so after working the booth for like 3 days, I come home and like I don't want to talk to anybody when I get back. I just want to recharge. Like if I have to go to a meet and greet and I don't know anybody, I probably will just like stand in the corner for 10 minutes and give it a shot, and then I'm out the door. So it's that I need that wingman or wingwoman to help me out.
I mean, luckily Emily goes to, I don't know, 80% of them, but that other 20%, that's brutal. Because I don't know what to do, right? You walk into a room, you don't know where to stand, where to talk to. It's just awkward, and it's very uncomfortable.
I'm just not someone who's going to walk up to someone I've never met and like start a conversation just to start a conversation.
Yeah.
So that's terribly intimidating to me. I won't even do that with people that I know online but have not met in person. Like if you were standing across the room and we were in a meet and greet and you were the only person I recognized there, like I maybe would approach you and talk to you, but it's more likely that I would want you to come and say hi so that I wouldn't feel so intimidated. So it's just the way I am.
Let's talk about your blog, and it is Buzzard's Beat, the Chronicles of a Kansas Cowgirl. You've been doing it since 2009? That's unreal.
Yeah. Well, there's been periods that I've been more active on it than others. But yeah, I've been, pretty relatively consistently. There was a time there for a couple years where I'd only get a blog post up once every 3 or 4 months. And it's not for lack of want, but I write as a big part of my job for the past 7 years, and the jobs I've worked at, I've been writing a lot. So when you write all day, then you kind of want to break and don't write as much. And I also don't want to create content just for the sake of having content out there. If I write a blog post, I want it to be meaningful and to actually be able to make an impact or help people understand something. So I won't write a blog post until I have like a legitimate idea that I think has some meat to it. So no pun intended.
I don't know blogging. I know podcasting, right? And there's a phase. You start a podcast and people are listening, and you've got that curve going up, and then it plateaus, and then it dips. And then you have what they call is pod fade. You stop doing it, or maybe you go from doing it once a week to once a month to once every 6 months. And that's what it is. Do you see that in, let's talk agriculture. Do you see that in agriculture bloggers too?
I think everybody gets to a point where they're not necessarily burnt out, but they just need a little break. And it's pretty difficult because there are very few, if any, people who are just full-time advocates where all they do is blog and do social media and promote ag and speak. There are some, but there's not very many of them. So if you're going to be doing all those things, like at any one point in time, something is going to get less attention. And sometimes I'll start working more on Facebook and Instagram and just not have as much time for blogging, or I don't have as much time for it, or I don't have a good thought. Whereas sometimes I've got 2 or 3 good ideas for blog posts, like right in a row, and I'll crack them out, one every 2 weeks and have a lot there. So I think it just kind of depends on the person, how much time they're willing to devote to it. And I think everybody, like I said, everybody goes through that period of time where, they've been blogging once a week for like 3 months and they just need a break. So maybe they're going to pull back on that and focus on YouTube or something, and maybe only blog once every 3 weeks or something. So I think everybody goes through that. It's just kind of depends on the person and also what else they're doing.
The longer I podcast, the less I know about it. I mean, I would do an interview that I think this is phenomenal, and it doesn't go anywhere. And then I'll do one, and I get done with the interview, and it's like, okay. And the thing takes off. Do you see that with your blog too?
Yes, I wrote one a couple weeks ago that I thought was just going to explode. I was so proud of that. I was like, man, my blog is going to crash again, which is not ever a good thing. But if you're getting a lot of traffic to your blog, it makes you feel good. And I mean, it did not do as well as I thought. It still did decent, but it wasn't a letter to a congresswoman level by any means. So you just keep your expectations at a normal level, I guess, because people may have different interests in things. But I really thought it was going to kill it, and it didn't. So,
yeah.
Oh well, I'll try again.
We've all been there. Okay.
Yeah.
You have been agriculture blogging for like 2009. I mean, you've been doing it a long time. It's always good to get new ones out there. So if there's someone out there listening, and let's keep it directed just specifically at you. A woman in agriculture wants to get started in doing blogs. What advice would you give them?
Stay in your lane.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know anything, I'm speaking for me personally. I don't know hardly anything about farming. I know when you plant crops and when it's important for corn to get water, and I know when harvest is, and I know like the very basics of crop farming, but that's it. So I don't venture into farming really at all on my blog, but I'm like knee deep in cows and cow mud and poop every day. So that's what I know, and that's what I blog about. So that and like parenting. I'm very passionate about like food waste. So I blog about the things that I feel confident about that I know. So that's a big piece of advice that I would say is just be confident in what you know and don't feel like you have to know everything.
Okay. And if someone's going to start a blog, if it's going to get any traction, you are going to get haters. Do you have advice for that?
You absolutely will get haters, but I would say that don't let one hater override like the work that you're doing when you're actually connecting with people. So I have been called a bad mom more times than I can count. I've been called an idiot. I've had a death threat. I mean, I guess if you're not willing to be called a bad mom every once in a while, then advocacy probably is not going to be for you. Or conversely, if you're not willing to be called a bad dad, it's probably not for you because people are very passionate about their food. Food is a very personal thing, and people have very strong beliefs about it. And when you challenge people's beliefs, they get defensive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't handle some blowback from that, you're going to have to maybe move on. But I would just advise you that just remember that for every negative comment you get, there's probably 50 people who learned something from what you wrote. So a long time ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years, I posted a picture of me holding a package of like baby food from Gerber that said it was like mashed carrots and it said non-GMO. Well, I took a picture of it and said, Gerber, this is ridiculous. First off, there are no GMO carrots on the market anyway, so a non-GMO label is just ridiculous. And secondly, GMOs are safe, so this type of labeling is not important. And I put it on my Facebook. I don't know, I think I had like 11,000 people like it or comment on it or whatever. And there were a lot of comments on there, probably like 25% of them were not nice. But the rest of them were saying, this is right, way to go, or, spread the word. Like people saying that they agreed or that they didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that carrots weren't GMOs, and I didn't know that GMOs only existed in certain areas of food or something like that. So you just have to remember that for every bad comment, there's probably a lot of people out there who think what you're doing is really great. They're just not telling you. You can't let a comment keep you up at night because the person who wrote it is definitely not staying up at night thinking, well, I really socked it to that blogger. So you just have to let it roll off and have some thicker skin and remember that creating confidence in the food supply is really important and that you're doing good work. So that would be my advice on the bad comment.
Let me ask you this too, because you've been doing it for a long time. You're one of the more recognizable blogs, if not the most recognizable blogs in agriculture. You've got people out there that want to do this. I find myself doing this the same. I will have 100 good comments and one bad one, but yet my mind thinks about the bad one.
I don't know how to solve that. I'm the same way. We're not in the minority in terms of letting bad comments. And I think that's just in human nature is that we tend to focus on the bad because we want to be better. But it's really hard to do it, to overcome it. And it took me a long time. I can read something that says you're an idiot and a bad mom, and I can say, no, I'm not, and just close my computer and be okay with it. It took a while, but I can honestly say I'm there. And I think it just comes from remembering that helping people understand where their food comes from is something that somebody needs to do it. And if we don't do it, PETA and HSUS are going to do it, and we're definitely not going to like what they're saying. So I guess if you want to protect our livelihood and secure, your farm or ranch for future generations, for your kids, then you have to keep that in mind. Like I can either shut down my blog because someone called me an idiot, or I can work to make sure that there's no policies or anything put in place that are going to jeopardize my children's future on the farm or ranch. Hopefully when you weigh it like that, hopefully it comes out in favor of keeping the work of advocacy.
Okay, you're going to put a pro agriculture blog, YouTube, social media. You're eventually going to attract the attention of, the PETAs, the antis, right? The trolls, antis, and all that. That's just par for the core. What about coming to the realization that you're getting hatred from inside agriculture? Because it seems like everybody that does these things eventually comes to that too. Have you experienced that?
I can't say that someone has sent me an email and said, hey, you did this totally wrong. What's wrong with you? But I mean, yes, we in agriculture we can be pretty critical of each other. And it's unfortunate when we're all working towards the same goal. I'm sure there are people who don't agree with the way I do things, and that's their choice. And not everybody is going to like everything I do. And I can't say that I agree with everything that everybody else does. So we all just need to remember that we're working for the same common goal, and that when we argue in agriculture, that everybody else sees that and sees us being divided. And that's not a good look for ag.
Very well put. You've been doing this blog for a long time. And do you get a chance to do any speaking on it?
I do, actually. I've been pretty fortunate over the past year to have several speaking engagements. And previously, before I worked at Red Angus, I worked at the National Cattle and Beef Association and did a lot of advocacy work. So a big part of my job was traveling to different states and training groups of people how to be a beef advocate. And since I have left NCBA, I've still been doing a lot of speaking about the same topic, but also about like fear-based food labeling and how to be a good advocate for agriculture. Keynote for small youth leadership groups. So, the National Junior Swine Association had me talk to them about like getting started and having the drive and how to be a leader and things like that. So I do a decent amount of speaking engagements, and I really enjoy going and helping people. A lot of people are passionate about beef or about raising livestock or farming, but they just don't really know how to get started, and they kind of need that like push and that encouragement. And I find that when I can go and do speaking engagements, I can help people, give them that encouragement that they need and that kind of vote of confidence. You don't have to have 100,000 blog followers to make a difference. So I do enjoy getting to do that. And I get to meet a lot of really cool people when I'm out on the road.
It seems to be somewhat of a trend now with meetings and that, because it was the same speakers for decades, right? And I'm not knocking them. They did an incredible job. But it does seem like there's a shift now with meetings and gatherings and stuff like that. A lot of the speakers you're seeing are people that have gotten recognized social media wise through whatever. And, as far as like your blog too. What do you think of that trend?
I think it's been really great, actually. There's a lot of really great knowledge and experience that's, peppered throughout the United States on farms and ranches, and people that have a lot to share and have a lot of life experience. And now they're getting that opportunity, whether it be to talk about how their ranch is transferred from one generation to the other, or how their farm does sustainability practices and how they're planning for the future through, water management plans or grazing or whatever, what they're doing. And I think there's just a lot of untapped talent throughout the U.S. that people can find when they have speakers come that maybe aren't the first thing that pops into your mind when you think you want an industry speaker or a speaker for a conference or something like that. But there's a lot of really great people out there that can to speak to messages because they have their boots on the ground and they live it every day. And when you live something every day, you're obviously pretty passionate about it. So I think it's great.
I think it's just natural myself. I mean, there's so many smart, entertaining people out there in agriculture, and you really never had a way to see them before unless I got involved like a farm organization or they were media or whatever. Now you can. And the social media has leveled the playing field for all of this. And I personally, I'm kind of enjoying seeing how the old ag industry is dealing with all of this. So, yes. So you would be open to doing more of that type of speaking then?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I love getting out to talk to people and talk about what I do and sustainability on our ranch and how to be a beef advocate. And I really love it. I turn the outgoing switch on and talk with people and enjoy it. And then I get home and turn the switch off for a little bit and watch some Mad Men.
Give the description of what your job is in a nutshell.
Well, I'm a communications professional. I'm the director of communications for Red Angus, Association of America. I touch everything to do with communications, social media, press releases. I write articles for our American Red Angus magazine. I work with state affiliates. If it has to do with communications, I touch it in some way and another. And I'm really fortunate to work with a really great staff of people who give me a lot of really great things to communicate. I love my job.
So would you say that you are in charge of like a corporate social media?
In charge is pretty strong, but I mean, I plan and post the social media on our business pages. So Red Angus has Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So I post the content on those pages and I plan it and get the pictures together and all that kind of thing.
I always thought that would be so hard because you take like your Twitter or my Twitter, personal Twitter. I mean, mistakes are always made, right? And it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's social media, move on. But when you're doing it for an organization or a business, that's a different level because, I mean, you've got people that are criticizing every single word, criticizing your punctuation, whether something has a double meaning or all that stuff. How careful do you have to be when you make a post?
Very. You're absolutely right. You have to be very careful. I actually sit down, and so like at the end of March, so next week, I will sit down and plan all of the social content for April. So I'll use content from our magazines. I'll plan on sharing some things from industry news. So I don't always know what industry news it'll be, but there's obviously a lot of industry news about the beef industry every day. So
Yeah.
I'll make room to put in some industry links in there. And then I'll promote our programs and things like that. And then, so I have that all planned out. And then on Mondays of each week, I will take my calendar and write the post and schedule them out for the week. So it gives me a chance to really devote the time to it, to make sure that the punctuation is right and to make sure I'm not saying something bad about a presidential candidate in the wrong way. You know, you have to be really thoughtful about the fact that like anybody could be offended by anything at any point in time.
What?
So I just
Come on.
have to be, yeah, I know it's crazy, but I have to be I'm just very careful and make sure that I'm out of Brandi Buzzard as a rancher boots and into Brandi Buzzard Red Angus boots, and just making sure to have like a really good bird's eye view of where everything fits into the industry and how we portray ourselves as a breed association. It's just like running, you know, a social media account for like Walmart or for any other brand. It's just having the perspective and choosing our words carefully and doing our very best not to include any bias any way or the other. There's a lot of, I remember when I was getting out of grad school, and that's kind of really when brands and like businesses started getting Facebook, probably about 8 years ago or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember people, you know, that was a cool job to get, was people wanted to come up and run social media for brands. Right now, there's not a great grasp sometimes of how much work social media is in terms of managing pages, because you're not just like throwing a link up and being done with it. You're trying to grow your page, and you know all this full well because you've got multiple social media outlets, but you're trying to grow your page, get good engagement, produce content that you actually can share. And when you're managing like multiple pages and multiple outlets, like that can be pretty time consuming. It's not like when I sit down and plan out social media for a month, it's not like a 5-minute thing. It's planning, okay, am I going to have really good engagement on this Monday? What do I want to line it up after Tuesday? So it's a lot more time consuming than people probably understand until they get immersed in it. It's fun, but it's an actual job.
Yeah, there's times when I'm doing a post, I'm like, this is so stupid. I've literally spent 15 minutes on this one stupid post, and it's just a post, right? I've actually, like the radio show, the Facebook, we hire that out. I actually have Marcy make those posts every day just because I can't do them. I made a goal when I got on Instagram. I'm like, I'm going to do a story, just one stupid story every single day. I'm just going to do a story every day. That probably lasted a week. The time, it's such a time suck.
On a personal level, like I will try to do all my Instagram, like I'll try to do my personal social media in the evenings. And by the time you get a post up, plan your Instagram post and put your hashtags on it and make sure you're posting at the right time. And then I'll get all my photos from the day and I'll put them on my story. And you try to put cool graphics on them and hashtags. And if you want to add music to them, I mean, it is time consuming. You have to be cognizant of not falling into a deep dark hole on it so that you ignore your family or something like that. So it takes a lot of time. And then if you've got a Facebook page and you've also got a Twitter and then you're trying to write blog content. I mean, it's a full-time gig that really that shouldn't be a full-time gig.
I know.
But it ends up being that way. I blog. I'm trying to stick to once a month.
Yeah.
That way I have content once a month, but it doesn't always work out that way. But I'm hoping it would be nice to keep myself to 500 words every month. Surely I can come up with that. So
I actually don't see a number on these. Do you have an idea of how many blogs you've done?
Oh no, I have no idea. I have no idea.
A bunch.
Yeah, when I was in grad school and I was trying to do a lot, I was trying to do something like a couple blogs a week, honestly, because at that point I was kind of treating my blog like as an ag issues update, but also a consumer facing thing, which was not good. You have to pick one audience and like identify your target audience and do that. And you can't be everything for everyone. So I was blogging a lot more then. And, in the past 3 or 4 years, I've really focused on just targeting like that consumer or grocery shopper who is a parent and is food informed and just wants to know more about the food they get. So they don't necessarily, it's not really an age range on it, but it's just more people who are looking for more information about their food. I'm not trying to change the minds of people who hate beef. I'm not trying to reach those people and change their mind. I'm just trying to reach people who enjoy beef or enjoy, learning about farming and ranching, and they just want to learn more. So that's my target audience. But before I kind of figured that out, I was blogging a lot more often, and it wasn't always great quality content. So I've tried to lower the amount of blog posts, but make each one be really valuable when I post it.
Brandi Buzzard, where can people find you on social media?
Well, my blog is buzzardsbeat.com. That's buzzard like the bird. And then my Facebook page is facebook.com/buzzardsbeat. And my Instagram is just Brandi Buzzard. So it's pretty consistent.
And you should not be able to forget that name too. It's very, very cool. You do a very good job, not only with what you're writing, but the pictures you're putting out there, the way you portray agriculture. I mean, you do a very, very good job. Honestly, I think that if you're not following Brandi, or if you haven't heard of her, you definitely need to go check it out, because it's just a very solid, consistent voice for agriculture that's done a lot of good over the years.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're uncomfortable with compliments, aren't you?
Yes, but I still appreciate you saying it.
Well, Brandi Buzzard from Kansas, thank you so much for taking the time to do the podcast. I really appreciate it. And everybody else, we hope you catch us next time.
And thank you for listening to the Shark Farmer Podcast. I am your host, Rob Sharkey. Please visit us at www.sharkyfarms.com. And just search for Shark Farmer to follow me on Twitter. Later.